Gotta reconvene.
All right, I need a motion to reconvene the meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is the consent.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes on B and pulling H and I.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The next up I have is the administrator's report. Who has that one? I know you're,
It's been my first week, as most of y'all know, so I don't have much to report. We did send out a notice Friday, I believe, informing the public of the last Friday of the shutdown, and then also another notice of where to receive official information, which should be on the village website if anyone has any questions. Also had some questions and concerns about the community garden, and we'll get that on the next agenda for discussion.
so just to be clear, we're getting a ton of emails from people just inquiring what's going on and stuff like that. So instead of getting in the weeds, I know we talked about having a statement for tomorrow.
Okay.
We had prepared. So we have that. I know, again, there's some things we can talk about, some things we can't, and this will hopefully take what I said and shrink it down a little bit. So that is, should we read it?
Just send it out.
This is for the website?
It's for the
And-
website, yeah. And then how do we want to handle if we get inquiries about what's going on in Marvin? I mean, we have a lot of little things. I think we had one.
We had talked about it in the April meeting that we would funnel all questions to staff for them to address.
Okay, so, and you can handle that?
Handle those.
Okay. Work together. All right. All right, thank you very much. I'm sure you'll be busy tomorrow. Next up is 8 Planning Board Chair update. Welcome, John Jones, for a quick update.
Thank you. This update is regarding the landowner meeting that we had with the landowners that may be affected by a future village center overlay district. And that was, we sent letters out to 13 property owners that were either within the bubble, as it's been identified, or slightly, adjacent to. Sent out 13. We had 8 who attended. The ones who didn't attend included a representative from both churches and from Mr. Smith, and also the Marvin Historic property.
Okay.
So we had a very good representation. It actually went, I felt very pleased with it.
Okay.
There was not a whole lot of, there was no dissent or anything, which surprised me. I was expecting to get some, well, we don't like that, or we don't like this. The feedback that we got really centered upon just a couple of areas. First and foremost was access to the property as it pertains, from Newtown Road, et cetera, because that's going to get tougher and tougher. So that was of a concern of almost everybody. Also, Scott Led over here, his main comment was he doesn't want to see the image of downtown Marvin change. It needs to continue to look like, downtown Marvin. And I think that's part of the village center plan as it's incorporated in the draft land use plan. All this is in regards to the land use plan. And then there was some concern from the representative of Mr. Crawford and his properties over here about we like the idea, but we don't want to make ours commercial. And it was pointed out to them that all this is going to be an overlay district. In other words, it's not going to change your property at all. And they were happy with that concept. So that really was the feedback we got, and we were very happy with that. And we are progressing. I updated everybody previously on that. We're unfortunately a little slower than we had anticipated. We've gotten many more things on on our palette to have to deal with since we started this, but we're not too far behind, and we're still making progress, so we're very happy with that.
What are the next steps?
Well, we've got, I think, one more major section to go over, and then we've got to review. Staff was going back and take all of our changes, comments, etc., rewrite it so that we could look at it in one common format instead of all the scribbled notes that we've all got. So we'll be able to go back through that again. So, you know, by August or something, we ought to be in pretty good shape with it.
Okay.
And
The land use plan.
with the land use plan. And then we've got other steps to go after that, you know, the specific design parameters of the village center, et cetera, but, you know, which is pulled out as a separate document to go along with the basic land use plan.
What do you see your biggest challenges as you're looking at this, you know, from, you know, obviously we had, what, 4 pages, you said, whatever it was, 13 years ago.
Original, we
What
had
is your
4 pages,
biggest?
and now, you know, we got something that was 100 and something pages.
As vice chair, can I
Yeah,
just
yeah, I didn't
join
realize
in
you were
again?
here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, well, one of the things we were challenged with is we looked at the existing draft document, which was voluminous, very thorough, and had a lot of wonderful detail in it. But we started to ask ourselves, how can, we don't own this land. This is private property held by residents and citizens of Marvin who pay taxes. How can we sit in here and decide what's allowed or not allowed on their land? And we asked council if we could reach out to them and have a public hearing to just hear them and say, hey, what do you guys want before we make all these rules about the land that you own? So we thought it would be a good idea to get everyone together, which of course we did. I was at that meeting and the following up to about the roundabout, and we did ask. We asked the landowners. You know, there was a universal theme that everybody wants it. It sounds to me so much like what's in the current draft of the village center that it's unbelievable. That's why I can't believe some of this incredible friction that goes on. They're so close in concept for what we heard from the landowners, for what we have talked about as why we're serving on the board as citizens, and trying to preserve the image of Marvin and keep Marvin what Marvin is. But if we're going to have a town center, the concept is, if you hodgepodge it together, Mr. Epps has said, I think it's my job only when somebody brings me a specific proposal, then I look at it. Well, we found that those particular citizens and those landowners in that corridor that we've identified as government, being the village, we said, you know, this could really look horrible hodgepodge together, and you only get to do it once. Why don't we, as is referenced, I think 3 times in the current draft of the land use plan, look for a master plan, say what is possible in this weird little unique
So it
parcel.
says master plan in the.
Yeah.
Several
Yeah,
times, it
yeah,
says
yeah.
it should be done according to master plan, so that's
Happened to
what I
be a big
tried to
fight
say,
in the
and-
election,
and that's why I
so
said,
they-
I don't regard that as a bad thing. That could be the smallest infinitesimal amount of development.
Right.
But let's have a common look, a common theme, coordinated green areas, certain places to park, water that runs collaboratively, you know, force mains that might have to be moved.
Are you open to suggestions though in that way, in terms of the land use plan and what's
Yeah.
written in the ordinance?
And I think one of the things that, or at least I commented to the roundtable that night, was that, you know, what Marvin is going to be doing is not developing the village center. You know, we want to basically give them, the property owners, a vehicle to do it. Now, you know, we're going to have some guidelines as part of the land use plan, and then there'll be a design booklet or something, you know, like having the zoning ordinance that goes along behind the land use plan for all this particular zoning. You know, there'll be something to go along with that. But, you know, Marvin will give them the vehicle, and then Marvin will probably need to give them a 10 or 20,000 foot, you know, master plan. Not the detailed plan, but just something,
1,000-foot
you know,
plan.
a high level, non-detailed master plan.
It's, you know,
That would suggest parks here, parking here, maybe drainage there.
I mean, you
know,
got
just-
churches, you got cemeteries, you got, you know, all these different little pieces of land. It's just gonna take one good master coordinated thought, no matter how small or big, and I have not talked to one person ever who wants it big, but if we're gonna do a village center, let's do it coordinated within what is possible to make it look the way we want to look in this extremely odd little piece of tapestry with all these different interests competing. There's no way to do it and make it look good over the long term unless we do it globally in a master plan. That is what the original point of getting them together was, and saying, listen, if they want to build a Walmart or something with a neon sign, well, sorry, we're not, as a government, I'm not going to support that, I'm not going to put it in.
Right.
But when it came back small, consistent looking, then the only way to get from that point is to say, all right, well, let's get some experts in who know how to plan around all these unusual little things that we have to deal with. And then let's work from there and see if these landowners are interested in using their land for the purposes that we all agree are limited and attractive and consistent and cohesive. And if they want to do it, fine. But if they don't, they just want to live there like it is, that's fine
And
too.
then, you know, once we've
That's
done
the
that.
bottom, that's the end of the
that
objective.
high level thing, then it will be up to them, landowners.
Right.
Whether they do it themselves or whether they form, Marvin Village Center Land Development Company or whatever, then they'll have to go out and hire someone to do the detailed, master
Yeah, our
plan.
master plan would be
and
a
all that.
guidance.
It just,
I guess, when I asked the planning board years ago and said, who knows what they're doing, no one raised their hand like they've been doing this before, so that's why I encouraged us to seek out the experts who do this for a living. I'm not saying that this is the person we need to go to. Now, what scared me is the email apparently that I saw that, he was proposing a crazy number.
yeah, that's
and
that's not what we need.
Yeah, okay, so we're looking at high level,
Yeah, we're like-
very little investment from,
A competent, qualified person, but basically, as I say it, a doodle plan, for lack of a better, something that's,
but who
not
who
dimension-
pays for it though? I mean, for
Well, it would
someone
be
to
up
do
to
that
council to
work.
say, do we want to support the community and village center with some investment, that's in the future vision of it,
Okay.
to provide proper guidance to owners. What we decided our recommendation would be
Yeah,
to
and-
start with something that says, no way you can do it. There's no way you can ever have this or that. Or if you wanted to have that sort of low density, that sort of greenery, that sort of, interconnectivity of water and parking, this is really what you can do.
Right.
And then we would have to say, does that fit with the ideals of the community as voted in by the voices of all of us?
Right.
All of us together.
How important do you think the thing that you push for as far as the survey is in getting that?
Well, that was unanimous on their part, and
Yeah.
again, it's in Mary's draft, so I assume we thought at some point it was a good idea. It
I
says it
think it's-
multiple times.
yeah.
How does something work less well with more information and more expertise? I mean,
Yeah.
just because you apply information and expertise and utilize some of our tax dollars that we pay to get something well thought out, how is that a bad thing? Now, if there is an evil plot to build all this stuff and get a few people rich, then absolutely, we can't have it. But if the facts are that it's just citizens and landowners who want to preserve the fabric of Marvin in a very limited way, then let's get all the information we
Would you agree
can.
that there's legal processes and ways to follow and get things done, and then there are things that don't look so transparent?
Well, I think that we're doing
No, I'm not
exactly
saying
what the
you are. I'm
council.
just
I
saying-
hope not, because I've never done anything not transparent.
No, please don't read into what I'm saying, I'm just.
Well, I'm not certain why you're saying that to me.
All right,
It's a simple question. I'm just asking if you agree that there are state statutes and processes that come along with these projects, and then there's others
That's
that
what-
don't.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of state statutes,
what we're
and I'm not
doing.
disputing state statutes. What I'm saying is,
Okay.
let's work it. We've
Yeah.
reported it.
Thank you.
But anyway, thank you
And I hope
for,
that answered, your
yeah,
questions on.
again, I appreciate
We're
it.
making progress, on this.
We
Okay,
expect to be done through the land use plan and finally get that done within, we're hoping 3 meetings.
Great.
Hopefully maybe 2.
Thanks.
Are we allowed, we have to have some
Yeah.
special meetings. Do we have that officially?
what's that?
Can we do special meetings to ramp up our pace? and go-
It's your meeting. If you want to call a
You can
special
call.
meeting, you just need a 2 days notice?
48 hours.
48 hours? It's your meeting. Thank
you have to have
thank
a
you for
quorum
your
to
update,
call it.
and you do have to have a quorum for that. Next on the agenda, I have unfinished business.
We're gonna do PRG.
What's that?
Mary emailed me and said she
Oh,
wasn't going to be here.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We have PRG board chair update, and
She's not going to
She's
be
not
she's
gonna
not
be
available. Okay, so we'll have to table that. Next up is 10, unfinished business. 10A, discussion considering meeting minutes from December 12, 2017. Again, I made very little notes. I know I heard a comment about you want the meeting minutes, and that was the responsibility of the acting administrator at the time. In fact, I was asked the question, are we taping this? And I asked the question, and I was told we were. However, those meeting minutes have not appeared, so we don't have the tape because it's not the mayor's job to tape, it's the acting administrator at the time to make sure tape or the clerk was going on, and I was told it was going, so we still haven't found it. We have tabled it, and I promise you, I will eventually find just my notes, and I don't even know if that's going to tell you anything because it was just simple notes that I made at the swearing in, which not much was really accomplished. It was more from the previous council, and our swearing in wasn't until about 9 o'clock at night. I remember my kids waiting a long time, but even my own daughter remembered me asking if we were taping the meeting. So we'll have to table that.
I have information I can add if you want me to.
B.
If you have the meeting minutes, then please provide. Next up is 10B, discussion consideration of branding and website design. We had talked about this, there's been talk about putting signage and certainly getting rid of the signs that we have, welcome to Marvin, and, dealing with a more professional aspect is when you enter Marvin and where you're clearly where the boundaries are and stuff. So there is a branding company that offered to, while we were in my campaign, offered to do, I'm not going to say it's going to be pro bono, but they are local residents. If nothing else, all I'm looking for is to hear them out to see what they can offer. They're a professional company that does a lot of things, so if I get the blessing of the board, I can at least reach out to them, we can schedule for a meeting, and they can talk to me about branding, and that, I assume, would include signs, websites, which we've talked about. They may be something that can be involved, and how you, if you will, market this community in any certain way. So there was really no discussion other than a blessing from this council and a vote to say, yes, let's reach out to them and schedule them for an upcoming meeting where they can tell us about branding.
Yep,
I
let's
would
do that.
object to that.
Let's do that.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
So a motion to vote for that?
Make a motion to invite branding and website design company into the next regular meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Further discussion? All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nick? You have an aye? Okay. Motion passes. Discussion consideration of protocol on public comments. Kim, I think you had this one?
Yeah, I feel like the public comments time is for the public to comment and for us to listen and absorb what they've said. I don't feel like it's a time for us to debate what they have said. So I would like to put a rule in place, and we'll have staff work on that, that states that after public comments, we as members are not allowed to comment at that time. There's a time for that. Again, it's not public debate, it's public comment, so we need to be listening and we need to be absorbing what the public's saying and not a back and forth.
I know we have the tendency to, that's wrong and we want to talk out, but I think that's a great idea. Absorb it and maybe come back and address it later in another meeting or something like that after we have time to absorb what they're saying.
So can we make a motion?
Make a motion for that?
Yeah, make a motion to direct staff to come up with a rule during the public comments.
Just a reminder, you need
To have
two-thirds vote for that.
to have a public, just comment section and not responding from council members.
Nick, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, I mean, I've always felt that we really shouldn't be debating with, during public comments. It's the public's turn to speak. We're supposed to listen and just think about what they said and debate it and worry about it, think about it over time. Maybe discuss it in another meeting, but I've never favored the idea of having a debate going on the public meeting, public comments.
All right. There's a motion on the table. further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have discussion and consideration of an agreement with ncdot to share the cost for the Newtown and Marvin Roads roundabout. Chris, is that?
Yeah, I can talk about that one.
Okay.
The agreement that we had signed, that you all agreed to a while back when you agreed to the cost sharing, included language that just said that if there were any cost overruns, they would be split 50-50 with ncdot. And a discussion came up with them as they were talking about the new design of the roundabout, that there could be potential cost overruns, but they just want to make sure that you all are reminded of the fact that you agreed to whatever design is picked. If it costs more than what we've already contributed, that you all have agreed to share the extra costs 50-50 with them.
And
It
this
was
is-
more of they just want to hear back from you all that you're confirming your agreement.
And this is the same with the other two.
Yes, it's the same as the first one, yeah, but this is the third one.
Even though we don't know what they're gonna do yet
On the third one.
So-
on the third
so
one. They
for-
gave us an estimate of what it
Right,
was
we've
gonna be?
already written them a check for our share, but if there's any, once they finish the design, to consider all the things that were brought about during the discussion with the homeowners around there, once they finish that design, if the cost ends up being more than what they initially said, we just have to remember that we have to share in that 50-50 with them.
So the reality is we're 2 years out at least from that corner,
No,
maybe
a
one?
year.
Okay.
They're planning to do
So we have another hit of Powellville funds, which we could use on that too.
Where we
May,
have money in fund balance.
will it affect any of the roads that we plan to?
No.
All right.
I have a question about that. Did you want to talk about giving the administrator money for that corner?
What corner? Do we need to
That
talk about
corner,
that?
we talked about it.
Go
Just in
ahead,
case.
if you want.
So we had talked about giving the administrator permission, if you will, if that corner starts to back up during the summer at Newtown and Marvin, that you, Christina, can make that call and getting officers out there,
Okay.
since we don't have them during the summer.
'Cause right now it's school hours only, and we've been getting a lot of calls, complaints, and we're seeing this back up. And if it makes sense, I mean, we have to have a minimum of 2 there. And we'll leave that depending on how many calls and concerns that you're getting, and just maybe
Okay.
give us a heads up that, are you okay with that, Nick?
Yeah, but wasn't that part of the
It's,
thing that they would provide?
Not at that corner.
I don't
It's-
think at this corner, the one we're talking about, Marvin and Newtown, I think, and there you really only have left out, if you're coming from Marvin, Waxhaw Road, and right in, there's
Yes,
nobody
maybe
coming from the other
two.
side, so they don't really need an officer there. So I know it is still backing up, the amount of traffic and all that sort of thing is still,
I thought they originally had said that they were going to provide either DOT personnel or somebody to keep the traffic moving while this was going on.
Yeah, a lot of that, Nick, and I'll pull up the email because I've got it, was like during school times and like with the buses turning off of Joe Carr onto Marvin Road and things like that with the detours when the second roundabout's being built. I don't think, but I'm not 100% sure that they had talked about putting anybody at Marvin and Newtown.
But we can certainly go back to them and ask them.
Yes.
Yeah, that-
We can start with them.
ask for a little help, at least, because we're gonna plan on being there for the school, which is only in crazy, it's, that's August 20th, and
6
they
weeks.
start the new one, so 6 weeks we'll be back on just for that, so I'm okay with that. And I still don't think they're gonna need anything at the corner, so, but,
We'll keep an eye on it.
okay. Next up on the discussion is the update on meeting with Ravi Vassaretti.
Yeah,
Disclose that we did
Yeah,
meet with them per
which
council.
per council, Joe and I went and met with Robbie, who owns the adjacent property to the corner lot
That we own.
that the village owns, and council wanted us to find out if he wanted to be involved, if he wanted to sell, kind of where he was with the downtown corridor area. He does not want to sell, but he is interested in being a part of that, which he was at the landowners meeting. And he did say that if the village needs some extra land for turn lanes or entrances into town hall, then he is more than willing to work with us. So he was very excited about it, but just did not want to sell. He wants to keep the property himself.
And he didn't have really any ideas. He just wants to, he was appreciative that we did have the landowners come and talk, and we had just, and we'll get to that shortly, but we had just met with another landowner who was very appreciative of this open dialogue. And I will say, and just for the record, if we're looking at these land parcels, I'm adamant about involving them in the discussion. And the reason why is we just witnessed one of our state senators try to go after Wesley Chapel, and they backed down because Wesley Chapel agreed to have solar farms in there, so the state senator. However, Mineral Springs, now think about this. Mineral Springs had an individual who came to them, and he went the de-annexation route, and one of our senators were there to offer him that de-annexation. The Mineral Springs town approved everything that landowner wanted, and guess what? It still went through with the de-annexation. Makes no sense. So as you see, and I don't know any of the landowners personally, any of these emails you talk about that I was involved in, I may have been copied on them just as a heads up and stuff, and that's why you see that in the public's request. But I'm not involved in any of them, but they're clearly, that's an option for them. So if we don't engage them and say, what is it that you want? Because the last thing I, as a government official, want to tell any landowner what they should do with their land. But if we engage them and say, how can we work together? I think that's the way to approach this. Otherwise, if you get essentially a Kohl's and you get a Starbucks, and I challenge any one of you, if we get de-annexed, all that land, or the land, some land, maybe not all, can move to Union County. And guess what? Union County is not going to be as tough on ordinances. You can look at Starbucks right now. I guarantee you there's garbage cans between their store frontage and the road. It's poor planning. We want to be involved. So I'm just saying that's my push for that conversation, that we need to keep them involved in this discussion and figure it out what works best for the village. So it was a good conversation. I was at that meeting, good conversation, but no ideas, but willing to work with us on whatever ends up happening on that corner. Next up, we have unfinished business discussion, consideration of NCDOT presentation on NC 16 widening, scheduled for August, I guess it's 9th now, or 14th?
14th.
But we're gonna,
You haven't got to that point yet.
Okay. So who has that? Is that?
I can speak to that. Laura and I went to a meeting with NCDOT a while, maybe a month or two ago, and it was to talk about the NC 16 widening. They invited all the planners and administrators from the towns that are impacted. Weddington, us, and Waxhaw were there, and they wanted to come and speak to council soon over the summer, because they want to let you all know what the plans are, what the roads are going to look like when they do that widening. I will tell you that they are talking about Super Street.
So they're not bending on that? Super Street is their answer?
Yes, and that's what they want to come, and they want to present that to you and give you their explanations as to why that is what the plan is for that. And it would be from the Weddington area of, where the sidewalk currently ends, I guess at Ray Road, on 16 all the way down into Waxhaw.
Chris, has Weddington or Waxhaw heard from them yet? Like, have they been presented to
It's
yet?
probably this month, because
Okay.
they were trying for July meetings, but we couldn't get them on the July agenda.
Okay. So we don't know, like, how those presentations went and how Weddington and Waxhaw reacted?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, we can find out though.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's important, because I know one municipality fought that because it doesn't allow left turns, and essentially super streets, for those who don't know, to make a left turn, you would have to go to a light, make a right turn, then make a U-turn, and then make a left to get into where you want to go. So it's not a good, in my view, but we're looking at multiple different municipalities. We're one small part of it. Weddington is another part, and then you have Waxhaw. So we definitely want to be involved in that meeting and voice our concerns, and maybe, I think it was
Indian Trail?
possibly Indian Trail, someone who,
Stallings.
or Stallings, that did fight that.
Matthews.
It was a,
Stallings and
yeah,
Matthews.
fight that. So, I mean,
Indian
I'd
Trail.
love to get their opinions before we just say, yeah, just go ahead and do it, because I think that's not something that I'd like to see, quite frankly.
Okay. So we're going to get them on the August meeting?
Well,
The first August meeting?
The
Yep.
first, yeah, so if
Okay,
the
so
date's
then-
gonna
Yeah,
change,
we'll-
we'll make sure they know that.
so we.
Perfect.
Okay. So we table that, or at least hold on at that date, and we're going to talk about dates now. So next up on new business, I have discussion consideration of council meeting schedule changes.
Yeah, the July 26th meeting, I'd like to move to July 30th at 9 a.m.
Hold on.
It's a-
July 26th?
Yep, it's a
To the
work.
30th?
Yep, it's a work session meeting at 9 a.m. And it looks like we're powering through a lot of this, so hopefully it'll just be the public hearings. So do I need to make a motion for that one? Okay, I'd like to make a.
Well, talk to
No,
Nick. Nick,
just-
you good with that date?
Go ahead and
Nick?
make all your changes.
Oh, okay, and
Okay.
then the August, I believe, 14th meeting, yeah, change that to August 9th at 6:30 p.m.
August 9th.
Yeah. And that's it.
And that's a regular meeting?
That's a regular meeting.
And that's on a Wednesday?
That's on a Thursday.
Thursday.
No, the August the 9th is on a Thursday?
Yep,
Okay.
And that would be at 6:30, the other one's at 9 a.m.?
correct.
Now, is the July 30th, I don't have a
That's a
calendar in front of me.
Monday.
Is that a Monday?
That's a Monday.
We're moving to July 30th, 9 a.m.
Yep,
in August.
9th at 6:30 p.m. is what I'm proposing.
So you'll put that, okay, so you make a motion?
So
for
make a
that.
motion to change the July 26th meeting, work session to July 30th at 9 a.m. and the regular session, August 14th meeting to August 9th at 6:30 p.m.
Further discussion?
You also want to coincide those public hearing notices?
Yes.
for that?
On the 30th.
Yes, yes, and I wanted to pull those. So, yes, so change those, the 26th, those H and I
All right.
from July 26th to the 30th. Thank you.
So both public meetings will be in,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Okay, so then that means that the NCDOT presentation for
Hopefully
August the
the 9th.
14th, or we're going
Try to
to
get
check
the
with
9th.
them for them?
Yep.
If you can get
Okay.
the 9th, that'd be great. So I need a motion to approve the council meeting schedule changes? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is discussion and consideration of forming a legal subcommittee. One of the challenges that we learned just for community is that as we found ourselves in discussions where we weren't able to meet as a body because of quorum or scheduled meetings, we were trying to figure out how we need to move forward on the issues of legal issues if they come up. So we talked a little bit about forming a legal subcommittee, whereas we don't have to call a special meeting every time we have to meet with our attorney or village attorney. So maybe village attorney can explain a little bit how that, do you see that where, how, I mean, obviously it helps us, we're not always calling special meetings.
Right, the board still needs to approve any lawsuit that might be filed or any major legal action would still need to be a, motion at a regular board meeting.
I can't hear you.
But as far as dealing with details, strategy, day-to-day conversation, instead of having 5 different, conversations or waiting until a meeting and having a closed session, you can have a subcommittee of 2 people and receive information that way.
Point of privilege, I still can't hear you.
Okay. Nick, are you okay with that, the legal subcommittee from a?
Were we talking about an ongoing committee or something specific?
I know we talked about something specific. I think that sometimes we're going to be in situations that have us either having to call a meeting. This was a perfect example of what we just went through the last month of all the time we spent, whether it was individually you and I, or you and her and I on the phone with School of Government. But if we had a subcommittee that was formed by council members, I guess you can't direct action, is that correct? But you can.
Right, that would still need to be a board action, but it can,
In an open meeting.
right,
The discussion
get
of
feedback and that sort
the
of thing.
feedback can
It's
be in the
not
subcommittee.
ongoing. I think it's specifically to deal with this issue of the resignation, appointment, vacant, seat, and how you're going to deal with that.
Subcommittee is still partial to open meeting law.
So we would need to make a motion to approve a legal subcommittee, then, is what you're saying?
Yes, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, but also, we,
Do you want to make a motion
well, to consult outside counsel. That's what I was trying to get at, because one of the things that we were struggling with, and for all you to know, is like, you do a great job of what you're doing for the village and stuff, but some of this is, outside your boundary and your
I have other
timeframe.
clients, too.
You have other
Yes.
clients, we understand that. So, with that, I think we talked about just trying to relieve some of that burden and maybe consult with other attorneys but I would like to make a motion to consult outside counsel for purposes of outside litigation, in particular for this open seat. So that we don't have to, because we couldn't take action with you to say, yes, we want you to do that. We talked about doing it, but we couldn't take action on it. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with the council, is to make a motion to allow our village attorney to consult with outside counsel for purposes of outside litigation for this particular open seat. So it is very specific oriented. It's not something that we would do on a regular basis.
I wholeheartedly
discussion?
object to that on basis
So
of law.
moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do you
Motion.
want to grant, or have a motion to file a lawsuit if it's necessary, or do you not want to go there yet?
How would we learn? So you would, in the subcommittee, we would learn that may be
No,
an
you
option?
could, you could make that motion now,
Okay. To take action with
to file a lawsuit
Okay.
regarding this issue of the vacant seat,
okay.
if it's necessary.
Nick, where you at with that? Go ahead. If you-
It's,
go ahead.
it's up to you. You can do it now, you can wait till another meeting, you don't have to do it at all. But I didn't know if you all wanted to make a motion to file a lawsuit if it's necessary, so we can resolve this current issue with the vacancy.
Yeah, in my mind, this is going to go to a court somewhere or another. It's going to have to be resolved by a judge or whatever, or some sort of legal opinion that we can get. We could discuss this forever, and I think we need to move forward and get some kind of resolution.
Okay, so we'll have a separate motion. You want a separate motion to allow village council to seek outside, or to, what did you say, pursue, if you
To
use the
consult with
term, if
authorize-
necessary.
Right, authorize the attorney to consult with outside legal counsel for purposes of dealing with this pending issue. And then you can vote on that first, and then if you want to do a
Okay.
separate motion.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then the last thing is, so it's specifically to this, but we did form a motion to form a legal committee, a subcommittee, is that correct?
No.
Did we
Was
make
that
a
voted
motion
on?
for that
No,
yet?
not
I
yet.
don't think so, no.
Okay, because
Okay,
first we
you-
would have to, if we're okay with it,
We
if
voted.
council's okay with it, then we'd form it, and then we have to appoint some council members to it, to have that discussion. So it'd be two separate motions.
Or
There's
three,
two.
right? So we've
So you've
authorized
got,
Melanie.
yeah, it sounds like you have 3 motions on the table that you need to clarify.
Okay,
Well, we've authorized Melanie to consult with outside counsel. We've already voted on that, so we've done that. So the second is to form a legal subcommittee. So do we need to make that motion?
Yes.
Okay, so we make a motion to form a legal subcommittee.
further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then lastly, I'll make a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem Nick Dispenzier and Councilwoman Vandenberg to be the two people to sit on that committee. Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then do we need one more thing
It's up to you,
about you?
whether or not, I don't know
Whether or
your
not-
timeline, how quickly.
Well, that's what I know there was a
I think we just
90-day thing or something like that.
Right.
So I think we say if necessary, we are granting you the ability to move forward, whether it's with outside legal counsel or you doing it. Either way, we're granting you that ability to challenge this seat.
Okay.
Is that all right? So can I get that? Do I have
That a
to read? It's sort of a motion, but
No,
it's
okay.
not pretty.
Are you making the motion, or is one of the other council members
I'll
going to
make
make
the
that motion?
motion.
Okay.
So we'll make a motion, if necessary, to allow village council to act on our behalf in filing a lawsuit, if necessary, for this particular issue on the open seat.
Yep.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Let's see what else. Okay, discussion consideration for the vacant seat process for council. Kim, you have
Okay,
that?
yeah, so we have a vacant seat and we would like to put it out to the community that the seat's open, and we would like to take any interested applications. And in our own rules of procedure, number 41, it says that any interested applicant shall file a letter with the clerk expressing interest in serving in the village. B, the letters of interest shall be kept on file for a period of 2 years. C, the clerk shall advise the council of applications on file. D, the council shall nominate individuals to fill the vacancy. And E, the nominee receiving the highest number of votes shall be appointed. So we need to follow our own rules of procedure, and we invite the public to submit their application.
Okay, we have that application.
Should we put a timeline that we're gonna keep it open before we start doing interviews, probably?
That wasn't the full rule of procedure, just to mention, it wasn't the whole thing read in entirety.
Do you want a timeline, Nick?
What's our timeline?
60 days or?
That's what I was thinking. 60 days? Okay, very good.
All right, so there, no motion needs to be made, we're just, that's more of a directive.
That's the directive.
Okay. Discussion, and next up is 11E, discussion consideration of village attorney attendance at work session. Oh, did I skip one? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Discussion and consideration of staff meeting protocol with council. This is another issue where the previous council put in a process where we had to sign in, and I've been very good about any meeting that I've had. I've either had an appointment and stuff, and I think we've found a bit of a breach of that in some council members where they just show up, they see a car in there, they just show up. In this case, it was Councilman Epps that didn't put in the right time. He was there meeting with one of our staff members and also discussing closed session business. So I have some concerns with that. So with that, I think we need to get a process set up to ensure that the village staff members will not be interrupted at any given time. So I think we talked about, for staff members, number one, appointments should be made, and it should be made even with, quite frankly, a constituent. You know, we have a lot of work that we need to be done, and just coming in disrupting your work, I think, is unfair. And as far as Nick and I, we've always talked about it's especially for you, Christina, being new and stuff, we want you to run it like your business and stuff, and respect the time of your staff members and your time, and you know, just require appointments before anyone comes in. The sign-in log is a great thing, so we know who's been in there, that's checked out. But also, given the acknowledgement of some people, they like to tape meetings and stuff, so I think we can, it'd be nice to have another staff member, especially if it's a council member in there at any given time would be a nice rule. So That's what I had on it, as I see some concerns of staff not being able to get their work done because of interruptions, whether it's town, but let's have a rule that just says that you need to call.
Can we direct staff to talk about what you guys?
You put
like
your
would
own
be
policy
helpful?
together.
Yeah, and then
Bring it back to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay?
That's a new concern that I'm in favor of.
Any other discussion, Nick? And next up, I have 11E, discussion consideration of village attorney attendance at work session meetings.
I think we can,
What's that?
I don't think we need that.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I don't want to be here any more than
Yeah.
I have to.
And I agree, because work sessions are truly for, finishing up business and stuff. It shouldn't be
Yep.
for legal decisions. No new agenda items should be on work session meetings. So, Nick, are you fine with, not requiring the village attorney at work session meetings?
Not required.
Yeah, I mean, and
Unless-
given the situation that happened last work session meeting, we called her and we needed her to get some advice and direction and stuff, but do you think we have a need going forward for a work session meeting to have our village attorney there? Or are you okay with just having her there at the regular meetings? Because it sounds like she is.
It's never been our practice to have the village attorney at the work session meeting, but again, the incident that took place in the last meeting has me a little bit worried about it. Worried about it, but I think hopefully we'll correct that.
Maybe on call.
How about this, could we do it as an on-call thing to, if we feel that there is something that didn't get settled and we have legal, it's still maybe legally related, that an on-call
mean,
situation?
What you
We do it in the morning.
How you've kind of been operating now is either the administrator or two council members, can invite me to a meeting,
Okay.
is the way the contract reads right now. So I'm still able to go. I just have to,
Okay, so we can do it by
Sort
case.
if I
As
have
an
court
invite-
or
as an
clients
invite if
in,
you're
yeah, I need
available.
to know whether or not I need to block that time off or not. in
I'm
advance.
in agreement with Kim and Nick that we don't need to require you there, because in my
Right, if it's
mind.
work session information, it's not legal in nature, there's no reason for me to be there.
Right, okay, very good. So no real direction on that. Discussion and consideration to add time limits on agenda items that are up for debate. This is another issue that, some council members, and I don't know, you guys, most of you haven't experienced this, but most of our meetings go well in late into the night. And it's because we get things. So what we're proposing, or I'm proposing in my discussion with Kim, is that we limit council members to a 5-minute, if you can't get your debate, your discussion, and your point across in a 5-minute timeline, then, you may want to work on that. However, if the council agrees, they can ask for a motion to extend that time, meaning that if it's a good debate and there's lots to talk about, that, we would allow an extension of a time limit. So this way, I know in the past some council members went on and maybe repeating themselves. So it was a thought of trying to, control the meetings that went on and all. Nick, do you have anything on that?
I mean, I know in the past we've tried to put time limits on when we've made up the agenda and said, this topic 15 minutes, this topic 30 minutes, whatever, try to keep us down on our time. I mean, I'm not crazy about the idea of, stopping somebody from speaking if they're in the middle of a good point, or they're in the middle of a real, an issue that needs to be discussed further. But
Right.
I think, then council will have to make a decision as far as if they want to continue going with it. But I believe our rules say that, you would have an adequate time to discuss your point, or you have a reasonable amount of time. Again, what becomes reasonable.
Well, if we start hearing the same thing over and over again, just to
It's
filibuster and stuff, then you can
Yeah,
just
no,
re-interrupt and just say, look, we've heard that. I mean, I can get, to my fault, I can get better at watching the time or having, like we allow 15, 20 minutes for this discussion based on how things are going.
I mean, theoretically, we operate under Robert's rules of order, and, the mayor does have is the chair of the meeting and does have control of the meeting, so, again, it's a reasonable amount of time or reasonable, thing, I think is.
Question is define reason.
Yeah, well, I get it.
Okay. Well, I mean,
So we'll just try to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
a higher standard or a reasonable time. How about that? Where it's not necessarily 5 minutes and stuff, but just be cognizant of that as you're preparing, and, less is more, and I need to get better at that for sure. So next up on the agenda for new business, discussion consideration to add a rule banning all electronic devices during council meetings. What I've seen in meetings, this is a little game, and that a lot of times people in the crowd will be texting messages to council members to help them with their debate and stuff. So I'm going to make a proposal. And by the way, in Mooresville, it actually became a legal issue that came up, and they decided on it, where council members in the state of North Carolina, maybe, do you know much about the law? Or what's that?
They're not allowed to use devices.
Not
in
allowed
council
to
meetings.
use phone devices. So what I'm recommending is, as we are in debate, and we will eventually have, but as we are in debate, phones need to be turned off. I mean, we have breaks. You can check your phone. But I would request that if there was an emergency, that they have your phone number, the clerks. So if my family has an emergency, they would call you and you would notify me. But other than that, I've witnessed many of debates going on between people in the audience and council members. It's been ongoing for years. And we need to stop that. If you're not prepared for the debate, that's on you. We can't be getting, hey, you got to say this, hey, you got to see that. And I see a lot of that. I've witnessed a lot of that. So what I'm asking is that we have a rule that as we're in debate, phones are turned off or turned down. You can check them in your breaks, but emergency issues, contact the clerk and you would notify us and stuff. Nick, you have anything on that?
I mean, I think I guess the real issue for me more is when council members are texting between themselves, so you're actually having private meeting going on, a public meeting where people aren't privy to what you're saying to each other. As far as a resident texting, I mean, I don't know if that's quite carries the same kind of thing as far as the statute. I think it would be, the court would be more a violation of an open meeting rule if you prove that council members were doing it amongst each other rather.
Right, so just council can't have their cell phones on.
Huh?
Council can't have their cell phones available during meetings.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm not asking the audience not to.
I'm saying, but my feeling of it would be, I agree, we shouldn't be doing any texting at all, really, but my thing would be more because I don't think you keep texting, and I know it goes on. It's good.
Right.
Council members,
Are you okay with members of the audience texting council members during the meeting?
Well, if we can't have our phones, it doesn't matter.
You can't control that.
Right.
Control it by asking everyone to shut their phones off.
Right.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen though.
Yeah.
So if council can't have their phones on, then it doesn't matter what they're being texted, really.
Right, so are we okay with the rule of not having their phones on? Is that what you're?
Ours?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I
Are
don't
you?
need mine.
Are you?
we have no problem with that.
I don't need my phone during a meeting.
You guys make up your own, are able to develop your own rules. You determine how you want your meetings to be run.
Subject to statute.
I mean, there's nothing that says you're legally have to have a cell phone at a meeting.
Yeah, I'd just like to maybe kind of write up a rule as we're in debate and stuff, that council members cannot refer to their phones and receive text, emails, or from anyone for that matter, so. And then
Is it
we'll
just
have-
that, or you're saying no devices at all? because otherwise that was very broad.
Phone
And I
calls.
like jumped on the basis
Mayor,
of
you
statute
need to be
and
specific
accessibility
as
laws.
to whether or not it's cell phones
Right now, just cell phones.
and not computers.
Yeah, and computers, I would think that if we have something on the computer, that you would be ready to prepare it. So if a council member is in debate and wants to bring something to our attention, he can provide that PDF file and stuff like that, that you can bring it up on the screen
So you are including
for everybody.
computers.
So you need to be specific as to what you're asking us to make a policy
I think just
for.
cell phones is probably the best.
Yeah, I think cell phones
Okay.
right now.
But the idea is we don't want the, I mean, if you have a computer and somebody can text you on the computer, it's the same thing.
Yeah, so that's why you have to be,
Sit there and be texting a lot.
Well, that's-
So what the idea is to stop the texting back and forth.
Right. But we would, I could see us in the future using our computers or a computer to say, hey, I have this, or I can look up this. But it's, if that's where we're going with that, then I think we should be prepared as councilmen, as we're getting prepared for these meetings, to get that information to the clerk where she has it to allow us. And is there a way, I guess, for our computer guru to shut down any kind of communication coming in while we're in our meeting?
We can include some language about texting or messaging apps in the
Perfect.
statement. and
Okay.
Just be amongst us to police it.
Yeah. I just think it just needs to be addressed because it was actually a case law in Mooresville, and they do not allow it, so we
Because
really...
I'm sure council provides computers for council members at the meeting where we have total control, of the computer, where we can see if anything was done or whatever. like
Right,
that.
right.
The purpose is not to have texting. It seems like, like I said, any iPad or any computer can get text.
Right.
So Christina, you can work on that language.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Last is discussion consideration employee contracts.
We
I
don't
think
have any
that was...
information on
We don't
that,
have any
so-
information on that. I think that was a request from...
It was a request from
Councilman
Councilman
Epps.
Reps, and
yeah.
I'm not sure
We can
what
get some-
he wanted to
we
do with
didn't
that,
know
but
either,
we were...
so.
Yeah,
Table that?
Just table that. Update on Village Hall. Review of the new facade and design.
You want to do it?
I
Chris.
mean, I can talk about it. At one of the previous meetings, you all had asked us to go back to the architect and ask for some, well, first it went back to planning board to ask planning board for some ideas about what they would like the village hall facade to look like, and then you all looked at those ideas that they put forward, and you gave some input into that. So we went back to the architect, and they came up with this drawing that was in your packet. So it was, without adding a lot of cost to it, it was a pretty quick drawing, but they wanted to know whether, how council felt about this and whether you wanted the architect to come and talk to you all or spend more time on this, or where we were.
How much time did they spend? I mean, do we have a budget that we gave them to? I knew it was going to add some cost because it looked like a barn before, so...
Right, I mean, we're pretty much, we've used up our architect budget, so if we were to, in the contract that we had already, one of the things we talked to him about was how to keep the new facade look in a 1.5-story building, which is what the current village hall plans are for. So there wouldn't be a whole lot of change to the interior, it would just be the exterior look. And so, like I said, this is what he came up with so far. So
Right.
it was just going back to you all to say, what do you think about this? And maybe getting more direction.
I like it, it's on the freight track.
It's the very last.
Second to last page.
I mean,
It's better.
yeah, we're moving in the right direction, I would say. I mean, from a standpoint of that's Village Hall. We do have some updated news. I mean, I don't know.
That's all we have.
Okay.
Okay. So we had talked about earlier in the year about the property on the corner of Marvin and Newtown, and I can't think of the address. It's 100, 002. It's Jeff Reason's property as Village Hall. It is for sale. We met with him under the direction of all of council at the time. They were all in favor of us having that conversation and meeting with them. They hadn't wrapped their head around that home being Village Hall. Mr. Reasons reached out to me last week and said that they had their head more wrapped around it being Town Hall. So Joe and I went and met last night with him and his wife, and they like the idea of it being Town Hall now. They think it would be a really nice addition to Marvin. Kind of what our thoughts are going forward is we need to check to see if the home itself can structurally handle being a municipal building. So without them taking it off the market or doing anything like that, they have agreed that we can bring in some engineers to take a look at it and see if we can make that work as structurally as Town Hall. So what I'd like to do is have staff, I know that Laura had come talk to our engineers about having them go out and take a look at it. So if we can talk to them.
We're going to set that up through your
Yeah, but we need to talk to them
We had a
first.
very nice, they're a lovely couple, spent some nice time. Again, they reached out to us and said, hey, let's just sit down and talk. So we did spend last night, and I think looking at that place, we brought staff over there to look at it, to see if it would work for them. My big thing is that I had somehow got an invitation to an ADA compliant, and I went on that meeting, and it was very black and white for that person and stuff. And the first thing was, offices upstairs, and can the public access it? And there's some strict rules of if all of the public can't get there, you can't have that. But if you have to have some sort of access to it. But if we had designed that in the way of the upstairs being small offices for staff and the downstairs for being the public areas, given it's a beautiful home, they spent quite a bit of money, and I think some of the issues are because the roundabouts going in there may not be a great resale for a home, and it may still be. We did ask them to keep it on the market, but looking at it from a everyday perspective, I think it's a great facility, and it's a fixed cost. We didn't talk price, but it's a fixed cost. We would know, and having the engineers going in there and saying, okay, what would we need to do to retrofit it? ADA you would need an ADA bathroom, and we have an idea where that would go. The meeting room would be their dining room, similar to what we have over there. And quite frankly, most meetings only have 5 or 6 people show up, plus staff and council. Anything larger than that, if we were going to move in that direction, again, I encourage you to look at it this evening with the lights on. It really is a nice, charming facility, but does it work? It has an out parcel garage, has a few things. They were concerned with some buffering, and it's on a well and septic, I believe. Mm-hmm. So amounts of people that we could host there may be an issue. So what we're looking at as an alternative when we have big meetings like this, that let's get our head wrapped around, if we go this direction, we'll have something like this place next door, or the church, a high school, Firethorn, plenty of opportunities to have these big kind of settings and be more prepared for it if we did that. But again, no discussion on price yet. We can get to that. We just need to see if it is even going to work. But I think after we learned from engineers, I think having you and some of the staff members go in there and say, take a second peek at it and say, does it work? I know Chris, you've been there, and some other staff members, and very lovely place, and I think it could work, and I think it could be a nice addition and a statement for our town as far as a town hall, because it's in a great location. So
Was the deed side for the other property we own for Village Hall?
Is the week?
The deed?
No, we haven't signed that yet. Anyway, so that's just the discussion on the update on Village Hall. So I know you had anything else that you had?
No, but I guess, so are you directing staff and enter into a contract with the engineer to evaluate, to do the structural evaluation?
Yes.
Yes. Are you okay with that, Nick? Yeah, okay. All right, so yes, so whatever needs to be done, if it can be a municipal facility, what would it take? What would it cost? It'd be a good idea to get a number on. Next up, I have 13, update on subdivision roads, discussion and consideration of Village of Marvin engineer sample 4-year road program.
Okay, that's me also. After one of the previous budget work session meetings, we had talked about subdivision roads, and I know initially there had been talk of potentially a 20-year plan for getting the roads done in the neighborhoods and for getting them all done. And then after that, our engineers have been working with ncdot to partner with them and to get some of the Village of Marvin's costs reduced, because ncdot would actually be paying for some of the roads. And we've had further discussions with our engineer about that, and they actually came back to us with a plan, which you all should have a copy of. I believe that was sent to you all.
No, I didn't receive one.
And in the plan, it showed how they could get all the rest of the roads done in the next 4 years.
Chris, I don't have that.
I didn't
Was
see
it in
that
the
it was
June
in the packet, but I
28th
can
meeting packet?
It probably was in the previous and maybe didn't get carried forward.
Okay.
I can resend that to
Perfect.
everybody.
Thank you.
Do we want to table that for us to review a little bit more, or do you guys have anything else to add, or?
I mean, I just let Chris.
Per the rules, can
Finish.
we have those packages posted on the website for the people to see as well? We do have a rule that requires those staff reports to be on the website.
One of the things that I'll just mention as far as the 4-year plan is that the guidance that they were working on, which is something that they had been talking about previous councils from, like, I guess over the past couple of years as you've been entering the Powellville program in the roads, the goal was to have $300,000 per year be the total cost, but to get an entire subdivision done in the same year so that we weren't splitting up a subdivision. So when Laura and I reviewed what they came back to us with, I'll just let you know so that as you all look at this when I send it to you, you can see. We tried to see whether, we looked at the ratings of the roads, but then we also looked at whole neighborhoods. And so they were trying to get the worst roads done first, but they were also trying to get entire neighborhoods. So there might be a neighborhood that has one road that's rated in the 60s, but all the other ones are in the high 90s. And so that may be why, that neighborhood got pushed further down. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at this, because we did try and see whether anything could be moved, and we felt like they had a pretty good plan.
Okay.
But I'll send that to all of you.
Great.
Okay.
And post it to the website, please.
So the last item we have then, 13B, is update on the roundabout construction and ncdot detour for summer 2018.
I guess that sort of happened already.
Yeah.
It's been posted to our website for a while. They finally, July 9th, started and actually set up the detours. And so the actual detours are posted on our website, and we'll be talking to them about whether there's any additional officers they can put out to help with the traffic. And I noticed coming across Crane Road that the light, maybe they can extend the light a little bit there so that people that are going through, because it was backed up pretty long.
Is that
But
something that you can?
We'll talk to them about that and see if they'd be willing to consider that.
So the interesting thing for me would be, are we going to start getting the calls? Because their detour route takes you all the way out to Ray Road, then goes down to Crane all the way over, and people accessing that neighborhood. So I suspect, even though it's only 30 homes of Marvin, that we will start to be getting a lot of calls. But that's a DOT thing, to be clear, not our direction. And
We got
how they
the directions from DOT.
Okay. I mean, they can put officers there and slow the traffic down, that's about all they can do.
The only other thing I'd say is it's still my understanding that the first roundabout is supposed to be done before school starts at the end of August, and then the second roundabout would start after
So
that.
interestingly enough, the date said August 20th. Road closed to August 20th.
That's before school starts.
It's a date. I don't know if I think they were tied into, if they get beyond the date, it's actually a hit on the
There's
contractor.
a monetary fine.
A monetary fine. So hopefully that gets addressed, and then the other one, and this goes smoothly. And once these are in, I'm thankful that it's finally starting, quite frankly. And once these are in, I think it'll really help with the flow of everything. So, and save us a little money because we won't have officers here. Last up, I have council comments. Nick, I'm fine with skipping it, or unless you have something to say, or if you guys want to.
I'm good skipping it.
Yeah, do you want to do council comments, or do you want to make a motion to forego that and adjourn the meeting? Because it looks like now we won't need a meeting for work session.
Yeah, we will, because we got the two
Oh, that's
temporaries.
right, we do have that.
So that'll be a
work
nice
session
quick
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah, we have 2 public hearings and stuff, so. Nick?
Yes, I guess my only comment, I have a couple of comments I just want to make to the people that are here, and a lot of the things I heard. This council worked on the budget from 4 budget or 5 budget sessions. I was going on vacation May 30. They had a council, everybody on council knew I was not going to be available the last, May 30th and all of June. I've been planning 3 months in advance, everybody knew that. We worked on that budget. We had 4 or 5 meetings. I don't believe anybody from the public showed up at any of the meetings, and they were all public meetings. But basically, at the May 25th meeting, my last meeting that I'm going to be there, we had basically finished, the budget was finished. It was only that May 31st would be the public hearing and then the approval. I wasn't at the May 31st meeting, but I was listening to the tape. Councilman Salomeo, for whatever reason, and NFs decided that, well, we should put it off for another 2 weeks and give the public more of a chance to look at it. I don't know what reasoning was behind that. I mean, to me, it made no sense. I've been on the council 9 years. I'm the longest sitting council member, well, the second longest in Marvin, since Marvin's been incorporated. But we've never had that happen before. So in other words, in my mind, you were going to now put it out to the 14th. Now, if you had more things you were going to do, you were taking me out of the equation because I wasn't going to be there. You knew I wasn't going to be there for the last 3 months. You knew I wasn't going to be there. So I just found that a little bit disingenuous. And again, this council was ready and had a budget in place that should have been passed that night. It was on the consent agenda. There was no reason for it not to be passed. It had never had any contentious things during the meetings that we had. There was never any bickering about anything going on. Everybody agreed to it. I said when I left the meeting May 25th, it was done. So that day, I just want, people, when they say things, to have a little bit of an idea of what they're talking about, because I think they're getting, when they're repeating things without knowing what really is going on. I just wanted to clear it up a little bit. So, as far as that goes, in my mind, you should be more looking at former Councilman Salomeo and Councilman Epps for why the budget wasn't passed. Again, I was away, so I couldn't make any of the meetings in June, and everybody knew that. So their reasoning, I'm a little skeptical what the reasoning was to doing that.
Thank you, Nick.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, I'm good. So I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'd like to make
Favor?
council comments.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Do you want me to go with you? Because I need to go too.
Probably no,
Toilet paper.
Yes, there wasn't in the one
Take some
stall.
tissues.
I know. I'm like, I feel like I'm in a dive bar. I'm like, can you hand this away?
I'm walking over there. I mean, I can wait, like,
Oh, you go back over to the.
I mean, we gotta take some.
Oh, okay.
Did you stop that?